Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. Well, we'll continue our focus on the preparations for the elections and the attendance issues that have popped up. Mr. George Eke joins us now. Yes, there you go. You just saw some part of the cap. He's a legal practitioner and a member of the PDP. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you so much.
Well, you heard this argument, the most recent one. That is the PDP that is behind this plan to remove the chairman of INEC.
Well, I don't think we want to assist the opposition party make an issue out of it, because you see there's something that they have had going for them all this while, and that's an area that PDP has done very poorly, is media bliss. They are on top of their media campaign and call it propaganda. The president has not been mute on this matter. The president has said unequivocally that he does not have any plans of removing Jega. Why are we still talking about it? If the president probably had not made any remark in this regard, one would have just said, okay, like they normally say, they are looking at his body language. Now, it is not a body language. The man has spoken. Right. But you see, beyond that, what is this whole trouble about removal of Jega? Jega is a public servant. And we're now bothered about why does he have to go on leave, that other public service rules and regulations don't affect or don't apply to Jega's tenured office. I don't think so. We'll probably be a topic for another day, where we'll now have to look at, is Jega subject to public service rules? Does he have a salary in the first instance? If he has a salary, what level is he? And of course, you would have noticed that the head of service said he doesn't have such letter, which follows that if such letter must come, it must come through the head of service. So there is a structure, there is a bureaucracy that Jega fits into. So Jega is not there. It didn't drop from the sky. There must be something that guides his appointment and all of that. As much as it is a tenured appointment and it is constituted and it is a statutory appointment, as it were, but there are also rules and regulations concerning how he goes on leave, how he collects his salary, and all of that. But apart from that too, let us just note that we are talking about institutions and not individuals. INEC is the organization that is conducting the election. Jega happens to be on top of that INEC. There are quite a number of other national commissioners. Even though it's been argued that they were appointed at the same time and whatever applies to Jega may well apply to them. But the important thing is that it is INEC that is conducting the election. INEC is also going to continue to conduct that election when Jega goes. And Jega must go one day. He must necessarily go one day. That it is coincidental that he is about to leave when an election is in place are moral issues. Then one can begin to look at them. Can he leave, when there is an election that he needs to do? But otherwise, the important thing is that Jega must go one day. And one day he must go. So if it happens to be about this time, let it be. It shouldn't be a situation where it is like the president or the party is about to remove him.
Is this something that you'd advocate, though?
Well, I do not know the circumstances surrounding his job. That is to say, when he was appointed, but I do know that from the calculations they have made, that if indeed he needs to proceed on terminal leave, he probably will leave before the election starts.
This is considering the fact that, these elections were shifted. Ideally, he would have conducted the elections on the 14th of February.
That shows
and would have been over and done
the
with.
coincidence of all of this.
And so these elections were postponed, and so, we're where we are. Would you say that if this is what the law prescribes, because nobody is quite sure as to what laws guide his appointment, they say no, he's not a civil servant, he's a political appointee, and so
he's a public servant.
Those rules, exactly, they say
yeah, sure.
He's a public servant, and so the rules of being a civil servant do not apply to him. When we're not sure,
but there are rules
is this something that we would
like I said
advocate?
earlier, there are rules that apply to him.
Yes.
But you see, if you are asking my personal opinion, I will simply ask that he be allowed to conduct the election. Even if for any reason he needs to proceed on leave, that probably the president should, or whoever his employers are, should be able to ask him, stay on, do the election before you leave.
Why would you say so?
Why I want to say so is that quite a number of things are already in place. And as much as I've advocated that it is INEC that is conducting the election, but that it may act as a little destabilization of issues, having to appoint another person within that period and all of that. But if an institution is in place, if Jega is in or out, it does not make any sense. It won't matter so much. If an institution is in place, whoever takes over from him, just is on auto drive. It continues to run.
So as it is now, if you look at INEC from 1999 till this very moment, would you say we have a strengthened institution?
Oh, sure. Oh, sure. You know, I have always praised Jega, with regard to, his commitment to duty and the kind of elections he has turned out, especially when you compare him against the backdrop of his predecessor, as it were. He has strengthened the institution. And that if an institution is strengthened, it does not require that person is not going to be there forever. And like I said, he must leave one day. So if it is tomorrow, if it is next tomorrow, it is next year, if it's before the election, after the election, it is okay. But when, like Marco asked my personal opinion, if I were his employers, I would say probably allow him hang on until he does the election.
But the thing is, why is it that, in spite of all that the president has said, people still think, look, there's more to this than even being said?
You see, that's why my opening statement is about media campaign. You see, the opposition basks in, crying wolf. They have a way of suspecting literally everything. I mean, you remember the point in time when it was like the opposition was asking for a national conference all over the place. Let us decide the nature of this country and all of that. Then the president was not swayed. At a particular point in time, he was swayed towards that opinion. He now decided to organize a national conference. Do you know what the opposition said? That they're no longer comfortable with the way the president is handling that matter. His body language, I still remember that argument, that his body language does not suggest somebody who is about to give the country a national conference. Everybody came to that national conference to determine how we can restructure this country so that at least we can move forward. Only one group did not come, APC. That's the same suspicion they have. The same suspicion they also had. You notice when they did the media blitz on militarization of the election, which is again raging now. At least it started with the Osun election. And my attitude then, I think, on this platform was that, first and foremost, an election where there were so many military people that they complained about. Unfortunately, or paradoxically, there was a higher voter turnout. And there was nobody who complained that the military stopped him from voting, not even the members of APC. There was nobody who had maybe this camera clip or whatever, where military was probably carrying ballot boxes or assisting any particular political party and all of that, but they kept peace. At the end of the day, the military was commended in Edo election, and at the end of the day, in that Osun election, APC won. But they were still shouting, such that I had to write in a newspaper article that the reason Nigerians don't know is that the military stopped those who were supposed to destabilize the election that were brought by APC at that point in time from coming out, because they hold them up. They were all held in their hotels. They couldn't come out. The genuine people that had their voter cards were all allowed to vote, and there was a higher voter turnout. APC also won, but they were complaining. What were they complaining about? Of course, it couldn't have been the election. It couldn't have been the voter turnout. It couldn't have been the nature of the conduct of the election. It was because, which most people do not know, those who are not in politics, all the people that they had brought in to help them do one or two outward things about the election could not step out because of the military presence.
We'll
and that is why a number of us are advocating that the military must be part of this election. We're not saying that they should be involved in counting the votes or in accreditation, but at least let them be around. Once they are around, they give us more confidence.
Mr. Eke will come back to that, but if you look at it critically, it would mean that, people are speaking based on what they've seen before. Look at it first. We had stories about it in Chatham House from the NSA, and even Mr. Kerry came, Secretary Kerry was here, and all of the assurances we had about not postponing this particular election at the end of the day amount to naught, because finally it was postponed. So if, according to Mr. Monidafe, that, well, there's no smoke without fire, that's what he thinks, that this talk about removing or asking Jega to proceed on terminal leave is so loud, it then means that there's some iota of truth in all of that.
You see, they are being unduly paranoid. And I'd like us to leave this argument at the point that the president, who probably should initiate the removal of Jega, if it is removal, I hate to use that word, but if Jega's tenure had ended, so be it. But if they prefer to use the word removal of Jega, it is the president that can initiate that. The man has assured the nation that he is not about to do that. Let us wait until he does the contrary. When he does the contrary, we'll now say, you were the same person who told us you are not about to remove Jega. What happened? Let's get to that bridge, and then we'll know how to cross it. Let us not base, in short, just like that resolution that was passed in the House yesterday, purely based on speculation.
You don't
pass a resolution purely based on speculation.
The nation is usually helpless when the contrary is already on the table, because recall about this postponement. I'm bringing this postponement because it's still fresh in our minds.
Yes.
The number of assurances we got that it won't be moved, but we saw how it played out. We were all waiting, and we saw the game. I'm using the word game because the place you thought it would have emanated from, it didn't emanate from that part. It's just like a chess game, and the piece that was finally moved was a different piece.
Sulai, the Chatham reference you made is the remark, or at least the speech made by the NSA in that place. He didn't assure the nation that, or whoever his audience.
No, after he spoke, we got assurances from the government that it won't happen.
No,
and it did happen.
You see, if you listen to the president have been consistent about the swearing in. 29th. The processes that will lead to that swearing in are not anything anybody can put his fingers on. But the important thing is that 29th of May, that a new government will come in place. And that's been consistent, the consistent assurance the president has given. So if anybody is now trying to read what they usually call their body language, it is outside this particular assurance. Even at that, they are even doubting that assurance. In short, somebody came on television quite recently and said that if the way they are talking about that 29th whatever may well be the assurance that a government, an interim government is going to be in place. Speculations all over the place. So let us not just bank our argument or whatever we are going to project with regard to this election on mere speculation.